ဒီနေ့ကိုယ်စဉ်ခုနှစ်ပါးရဲ့နောက်ဆုံးဖြစ်တဲ့ဝိက္ခာတန်ဖိုးစဉ်အကြောင်းကိုဆုံးသက်အနေနဲ့ဟောပါမယ်။အဲဒီဟောပြီးတဲ့အခါမှာစံကြောင်းလေးတွေလည်းပဲအရင်ကစထားတဲ့အတိုင်းဆက်ဆက်ပြီးတော့ဆုံးသက်ဟောသွားပါမယ်။
Today, the Sayadaw would like to conclude the series of talks on the factors of enlightenment by talking on upekkha, equanimity, as the final factor of enlightenment. After which he would like to continue by talking on the factors of jhana.
Upekkha ဆိုတဲ့သဘောကတော့အင်းအားချင်းညီမျှစေမှုပြောတာပါပဲ
Upekkha, equanimity, as it is usually translated, actually refers to the balancing of energy. တနည်းအားဖြင့်လည်းပဲပဲမလိုက်ဖဲနဲ့ဘဟုအလဲကောင်းမှာတိမှတ်နေတဲ့သဘောပါပဲ Or it can be seen as that state of mind which is in center, neither inclining to one extreme or another.
Upekkha ရိုးရိုးနေတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်သမထတရားနဲ့ဥပဒနာတရားကိုလေ့လာအထုတ်တဲ့အခါမှာပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်အမှန်တရားကောင်းမြတ်တဲ့တရားမွန်မြတ်တဲ့တရားဖြစ်ပါတယ်
Equanimity is a state of mind that is very good even when one is not meditating. It is a state of mind which can be experienced while practicing samatha or vipassana meditation. It can also be cultivated when you are not meditating.
လောကမှာအရေးကိစ္စတွေပေါ်ပေါက်လာရင်သူအပြင်သိအရေးကြီးတဲ့ကိစ္စတွေပေါ်ပေါက်လာရင်ပြဿနာတွေဖြေရှင်းပေးဖို့ရာအတွက်ပဲမလိုက်တဲ့အင်းအားမျှညီစေတတ်တဲ့အရေးချင်းရှိတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေကိုရွေးချယ်တဲ့ထုံးကိုသတိပြုမိဖို့သိအရေးကြီးပါတယ်
It is important to bear in mind that one of the essential qualities required of a decision maker, a major decision maker, is this state of mind that can remain unbiased and even in the face of difficulties and problems. ထင်ရှားဆုံးပြောရလို့ရှိရင်မြတ်အဖြစ်
Kaba Kula Tamaka for Yiha Kabaya Piatanari Pavola Edelu Ajin Nimyazi Absent Piatanari Pile on Lupinida Tira di Fuegigo Ubeka Fuegi Yawaluchi Mamla Bobby of Mamlamadi.
Perhaps one can see this more clearly in the United Nations, in the United Nations organization, where it is a common occurrence to have to negotiate and arrive at solutions to pretty hot problems. Perhaps in the discussion on negotiation table, such a state of mind of unbiasedness, non-biasedness, and evenness, equanimity, is even more essential. Sayadaw suggests that perhaps we could call the organization an organization of equanimity.
Miado Afima.
That is most of the times.
Guru Dripta Atude Nebere Maro Shumachetaima Tadane Pinya Uriane Tamari Adlu Asashi Tayari Chinye the Kubo Mataku Lamu Naine Chini Shivare. A long nine Chini Shide Shimbetiari go in Ajin Nimiasi, Sura Tea Atutum Yama Kongunale.
In the process of meditation, there are various states of mind, like faith and intelligence, wisdom, and effort and concentration, which have a tendency to compete with one another. That is, the first pair of faith and intelligence are always often competing with one another. Sometimes one is stronger than the other, and thus is overwhelming. So too for the other pair of effort and concentration. It is common knowledge among meditators that a balance of these two pairs of mental states is essential to make progress in your practice.
Aduza Yogi Boguri Foya Yuna a Piego Maming Tayabo Masana Lomio Uriari Kerane. I will never say that Chovido Dwarari, City Pian Dwarari, let you water. Karakama level is a selling the Limpani Namimuri will mirror Tina Medari, Niselu. Yari, Pivita Mahna in Amulashi. Uriane, the Mari of Mianibo. Karakama, the ad really attended the Mia Agonaro. Tara Diariga
မြင်ရပြီးတော့ဟိုလူဟောရင်ဒီလူဟောရင်ဟိုလူတိုက်တွန်းရင်ဒီလူတိုက်တွန်းရင်ဆိုတာပါလေအဲ့ဒါလို့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပညာတွေကနှုံနေသွားတာရှိတယ်တခါတခါမှတွေ့တဲ့တရားတွေကနည်းနည်းစင်ញင်တာတွေကမြင်ရပြီးတော့ရှုမှတ်နေမှတရားတိုးတက်မယ်ဆိုတဲ့ယုံကြည်ချက်ကအားသေးသွားတာနဲ့မဟုတ်လို့တရားတွေမတက်တာလည်းရှိတယ်တတ္တနဲ့ပညာမျှညီမှုမရှိဘူးဒီတော့ဥရိယပြညာမိုင်းမရောက်ခင်ကယောဂီဟာတရားဟာကြာသွားလိုက်တက်လာလိုက်ကြာသွားလိုက်တက်လာလိုက်ဆိုတော့မငြင်းများပဲဖြစ်နေတယ်အဖြစ်အပျက်ကိုခတ်သက်မြင်လာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အဲ့ဒါဒီအလိုလိုမျှညီသွားတယ်ပဲမလိုက်တဲ့သဘောတွေဖြစ်သွားတယ်အဲ့လိုမျှညီပြီးတော့ပဲမလိုက်တဲ့သဘောလေးဟာဒီညာမိုင်းမှာရောက်လာတယ်
When you start, or when you begin your retreat, you may be very, very enthusiastic about the practice. You sit down and immediately you want to pounce on your rising and falling and any other object that may arise in your field of awareness. You're very ambitious. Often we find yogis who get so excited about meditation that their effort is expended in excess, and instead of falling nicely and accurately on the object of meditation, due to excess effort, their consciousness just slips by the object of meditation. Too much force, too much effort. There is a slipping off. And so, to the consternation of the yogi who is trying what he thinks is his level best, he is unable to be accurately precise in being mindful. Sometimes, however, he discovers his folly and takes it a bit more easy, at which time his mindfulness begins to fall into the rhythm of what's happening. He's able to watch the rising and falling, and as he keeps on watching, it becomes easier, and the mind just fits and goes along with the rising and falling processes. In time to come, it becomes so easy and comfortable that there's a tendency to just relax. Well, everything is going on fine, what's the point of putting in too much effort? So he relaxes a bit and it gets smoother and calmer, and then very slowly sloth and torpor creeps in, and he finds himself nodding away or falling asleep. So this is an example of a lack of energy, a lack of energy with regard to the yogi. At times, when the arising and passing away of phenomena is still not being perceived clearly, the yogi may be filled with a lot of faith in the practice. The yogi has been quite successful in distinguishing mind and matter and seeing how they are connected somehow. And it becomes very exciting. The yogi begins to get a taste of the flavor of the Dhamma. Then filled with faith, there are thoughts of wanting to share the Dhamma with others. Oh, maybe I should tell, my friend, or tell my mom, or tell dad, and so forth. And due to faith, then you let your imagination and plans run wild, and there goes your practice for that moment. No more mindfulness, but just a lot of thinking and scheming to want to spread the Dhamma. This is a result of excessive faith in the practice. At other times, this little insights into mind and matter and their relationship by way of cause and effect may be seen. And again the yogi gets excited. But rather than, but instead of being filled with faith in wanting to spread the Dhamma, the yogi starts to interpret his experiences, making a mountain out of a molehill, so to speak. They start to say, wow, this is great, and every little thing that they perceive, they start to interpret it in terms of the sort of insights that they have read about. And there goes a whole string of reflection. And thinking that that is the real insight, they go on reflecting and thinking. So this is the excess of intelligent thinking. However, if these hurdles are overcome and the yogi is able to watch the arising and passing of phenomena occurring very quickly, then these imbalances between faith and insight, effort and concentration will be overcome. At which point we say that the yogi is endowed with a state of equanimity, where there is a balancing of those four factors.
တချို့ယောဂီများဆိုရင်ဒီကောလည်းပဲအတွေးခေါ်လည်းပဲတန်သူများပြောတိုင်းလည်းပဲရုပ်တရက်မယုံကြည်မိမိဟာနေရာဌာနတိုင်းစီရင်တတ်တွေးတော့တတ်တယ်လို့ကိုယ်အထင်ကြီးပြီးတော့လာရောက်ပြီးတော့အထုတ်ရမှာယုံကြည်မှုတတ္တတရားကအားနေတော့ဒီလိုပဲဟုတ်လေသလားမဟုတ်လေသလားဆိုတာပေါ့လေစီရင်တွေးတော့မှုတွေမရပြီးတော့ဝိသိကိစ္စရဲ့လှည့်စားချက်ခံရတာစီရင်ဒီလိုနဲ့ဟိုလိုဒီလိုနဲ့ဝိသိကိစ္စလှည့်စားချိန်ကုန်သွားတာတွေလည်းအများကြီးရှိတယ်တရားမရှိတဲ့လေထဲမှာအပေါ်တက်ဖို့ရန်အတွက်လှေကားထောက်နေတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်များလို့ပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေကြတော့ညှိလို့တယ်မရခြင်းဘူးအင်အားကြီးညီသွားအောင်လုပ်ဖို့တယ်မရခြင်းဘူးဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့သူကဥဒုဒရှိတော့မာနလေးတွေခါနေတာနေရာဌာနတိုင်းအတွေးခေါ်ကလွန်ကဲတော့ကြည်နပ်မှလက်ခံနိုင်မယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဒီသဘောလေးတွေကရှိနေတော့တော်တော်လေးညှိလို့မရဘဲနဲ့ဒီတိုင်းပဲအချိန်ကုန်နေတာတွေလည်းအများကြီးတွေ့ရပါတယ်
So before a yogi arrives at this stage where the arising and passing of phenomena can be seen very lucidly and sharply, and where this quality of equanimity is present, then he will be going up and down, because the four factors, those four states of mind, are not balanced, and so the practice will be very shaky. There are other yogis who are great thinkers. They have a tendency to think and to intellectualize, to reason out before they really can accept anything that is said. And they take pride in having this quality of discrimination, of discretion. And so when they come to meditate, they are always inclined toward testing in an intellectual way the validity of what they're doing. They're always trying to verify it according to their intellectual understanding and reasoning. For such yogis, there will always be an excess, they will always be plagued by a lot of doubts. They will be led on a merry-go-round, so to speak, by doubts, and they can barely make any progress.
တရားထုတ်တယ်ဆိုတာဒီနည်းကမှန်ပြီလို့စိတ်ချရတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေထံကကြားလို့ပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ကိုယ်တိုင်ပဲသုံးသပ်ကြည့်တဲ့အခါမှာအခြေခံနေရာဖြစ်မှန်တယ်လို့ပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်အဲ့ဒါလိုယုံကြည်လက်ခံထားလို့ရှိရင်စိတ်တိုက်တဲ့အခါရှည်တန်းစစ်မျက်နှာအပုတ်ခံရတဲ့စိတ်အရာတမ်းဟူတမ်းတွေဟာအထက်အမိန့်အတိုင်းလိုက်နာကျင့်သုံးနိုင်မှစစ်ပွဲတစ်ခုအောင်နိုင်တယ်ဝတ်ဆိုဝတ်ပဲတက်ဆိုတက်ပဲဒီမှာဆုပ်ဆိုဆုပ်ပဲပြစ်ဆိုပြစ်ပဲဒီလိုလုပ်နိုင်မှဒါမှအောင်မြင်တာပဲတရားလို့ပါအဲ့လိုသဘောမထားနိုင်တယ်ဗျကိုရရှိတဲ့ဘုဒ္ဓတာလေးအသုံးချနေလို့ရှိရင်တော့တော်တော်နဲ့ခီးမရောက်တတ်ဘူးအဲ့ဒီအချက်သိအရေးကြီးပါတယ်
When one has heard of the method of practice, one perhaps has heard of how effective a method of practice is, or perhaps one may have undergone that training before and found it to be very effective on a very basic and fundamental level. Then one should have full faith in that method of practice and surrender oneself totally to the instructions given. Only then can swift progress be made. This can be likened to to soldiers who are fighting in the front line. There is a battle at stake, and there can be no space for squabbling or too much questioning. Everything that comes from the top, every order or command that comes from the top should be obeyed without question. Only then can a battle be successfully won.
ဒီဘုမှာပြောတဲ့အတွက်ဒီ blind faith ခေါ်တဲ့ညက်ကန်းယုံကြည်မှုမျိုးလမ်းကြောင်းကိုတွန်းပို့တဲ့သဘောမဟုတ်ပါဘူး
By saying this, the Sayadaw is not trying to suggest that one should surrender totally to blind faith.
ဟိုလက်တွေ့တရားထုတ်ကြည့်လို့ဥရိယဘေယညာမိုင်းလောက်ရောက်နေလို့ရှိရင်ခုနပြောခဲ့တဲ့ဥပေက္ခဟာအမှတ်ကောင်းလာလို့ရှိရင်ရှုမှတ်မှုကောင်းတဲ့အခါပေါ့လေအထူးကြောင့်ညမဆက်ရဘဲနဲ့သူ့အရှိန်နဲ့သူအလိုလိုပဲမှတ်တိလေးရဲ့နေသူထင်ရှားတတ်ပါတယ်
When insight into the arising and passing away of phenomena is realized at a deep level, then this quality of equanimity can become very, very obvious. The mind is balanced, and at times it may even seem as though no effort is required. It seems as though the noting or the mindfulness is going on by itself.
ဥပမာဘာနဲ့တူလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အသွားညီတဲ့မြင်းနှစ်ကောင်ကိုယထာမှာတက်ပြီးတော့မောင်းရတဲ့အခါမှာမမောင်းရဘဲနဲ့မဆွဲရဘဲနဲ့မှေ့ပြီးတော့လိုက်သွားတဲ့ယထာမောင်းသမားနဲ့တိတ်တူတတ်ပါတယ်အသွားညီတဲ့မြင်းနှစ်ကောင်ယထာတက်မောင်းတဲ့
အသွားညီမြင်းနှစ်ကောင်ဆိုတော့ပါလေ
မြင်းနှစ်ကောင်လေ
မြင်းနှစ်ကောင်This can perhaps be compared to the driver of a carriage, which is being pulled by two horses, which have similar strength and capability. Then when both the horses are running, since they are equal in strength and stamina, then driving the carriage will be very easy for the driver. At times he would just relax and let the two do all the work.
အသွားမညီတဲ့မြင်းတက်မောင်းပြီးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အားကောင်းတဲ့မြင်းကခြီးတွက်ပြီးတော့အားနေတဲ့မြင်းကခြီးရမတွက်ဘူးပြီးတော့ခြီးတွက်တဲ့မြင်းဘက်ကိုကျိုးကဆွဲပေးရတယ်ခြီးမတွက်တဲ့မြင်းကိုတို့ပေးရတယ်ချိန်လေးနဲ့ပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒါလိုလုပ်ရတယ်ပြီးတော့ယထာမောင်းတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ကမသက်သာဘူး
However, if the two horses are not of equal strength or stamina, where one is a fast runner and the other is just a trotter, then the driver will have a lot of work to do. He will have to hold the reins and control the two horses so that one will go faster than its normal speed and the other one will slow down, and so forth. He will constantly have to exert himself to make the two horses travel in an equal pace.
ယောဂီလည်းပဲသူ့အချိန်နဲ့သူအလိုလိုမှတ်သွားတဲ့အခါမှာအဲ့ဒီယထာမောင်းတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်လိုတက်တာမှုလေးတွေအလိုလိုရနေတတ်ပါတယ်
The yogi too will be able to experience this sort of comfort when the time comes where the mindfulness will seem to be going on by its own.
တနည်းအားဖြင့်လည်းပဲလမ်းကောင်းကောင်းပေါ်မှာစက်ကောင်းကောင်းကားမောင်းရတဲ့ driver လိုထူးထူးခြားခြားကြီးတက်တာနေတတ်တာလေးလည်းတွေ့တတ်ပါတယ်ဒီမှာယောဂီ
Or perhaps you can compare this with the driver of an automobile who is driving on a very free motorway, putting on automatic pilot.
အဲ့ဒီဥပ္ပခာတန်ဖိုးစဉ်ကိုဒီလိုအထကထာများမှာလက္ခဏာရတ္တပြစ္ဆုပ္ပဒါအနေနဲ့ဖော်ပြထားပါတယ်
The text give us an analysis of this factor of enlightenment in terms of its characteristic, function, and manifestation.
Samavahita lekhana ubekha de. Ubekha di samavahita lekhana shinpeတရားတွေကိုတစ်ခုနဲ့တစ်ခုမလွှမ်းမိုးရအောင်ညီမျှစေခြင်းလက္ခဏာရှိတယ်လို့ဒီလိုကျမ်းဂန်များမှာပြပါတယ်
The characteristic of equanimity is the balancing of corresponding mental states, so that one does not overwhelm the other.
ဝိရိယကိုလည်းပဲဝိရိယလမ်းကြောင်းတိုင်းမှားသမာဓိကိုလည်းသမာဓိလမ်းကြောင်းတိုင်းမှားတတ္တကိုလည်းပဲတတ္တလမ်းကြောင်းတိုင်းမှားပညာကိုလည်းပညာလမ်းကြောင်းတိုင်းမှားအဲ့ဒါလို့တရားမျိုးတွေကိုဘက်မျှစေတာပေါ့ညီမျှစေတာဒါကိုဆိုလိုပါတယ်
The corresponding mental states are, of course, on the one hand, effort and concentration, and on the other, faith and knowledge. So, these corresponding mental states should be balanced and can be balanced by equanimity as a factor of enlightenment.
သူရဲ့ရတ္တကတော့ပက္ခပါတုပစ္စေတရတ္တတဲ့ပက္ခဆိုတာကတစ်ဖက်ပါတဆိုတာကြတာတစ်ဖက်ကြတာဆိုတာတစ်ဖက်လိုက်တာပေါ့ဥပ္ပစေတရတ္တဆိုတာဖြတ်တောက်ပြစ်တာတစ်ဖက်လိုက်ခြင်းဖြတ်တောက်ပြစ်တယ်လို့ဒီလိုဆိုလို့တယ်တစ်ဖက်လိုက်ခြင်းပယ်ခွင်းတတ်တယ်ဖြတ်တောက်ပြစ်တတ်တယ်ဒါသူရဲ့ဆောင်ရွက်ချက်ကိစ္စပါပဲ
The function of equanimity as a factor of enlightenment is the arresting of falling into one extreme or the other. It is able to arrest the excess or the lacking of a corresponding mental state.
အဲ့ဒါလို့ဘက်လိုက်ခြင်းမရှိဘဲနဲ့ဘက်လိုက်မှုကိုပယ်ရှားတဲ့အနေနဲ့ညီမျှနေပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ယောဂီအနေနဲ့မจจတဘာဝပัจจุပဋ္ဌာနာတဲ့အလေဘဟိုကြတဲ့တရားပဲဆိုတာပေါ့လေဉာဏ်ထဲမှာလည်းထင်လာတတ်တာ
So when the extremes are not fallen into because they have been arrested by the presence of this factor of enlightenment, then the yogi can experience for himself how the mind becomes very balanced. There is total balance and no inclination at all to an excess or a lacking of one corresponding mental state or another. Thus, this is the manifestation of equanimity, a state of balance.
အဲ့ဒါကိုဥပမာလေးပေးထားပါတယ်သမပဝတ္တနာအသနာအကျုပက္ခဏစာရတိဝိယဓာတ်ထပါတဲ့ခုနပြောခဲ့တဲ့အတိုင်းအသွားညီနေတဲ့ယထာမှာတတ်မောင်းတဲ့မြင်းနှစ်ကောင်ကိုတဲ့သူကမမောင်းရပဲနဲ့သူကိုမဆွဲရပဲနဲ့ပေါ့လေအလိုလိုတက်တာနေတဲ့ယထာမောင်းသမားနဲ့တူတဲ့တရားပဲလို့ယောဂီညာနဲ့မှလည်းထင်လက်တတ်တယ်
The texts provide an example to illustrate this last point. This analogy is that of the driver of the carriage, who is having the two horses equal in strength and speed and stamina, pulling the carriage. Just like we mentioned just now, since these two horses have an equal pace, then it will be a very easy job for the driver to just settle back and let the two horses do the whole job of pulling the carriage.
Yogiya edi khamyo ma poya ayong leတွေကိုအထူးကြောင့်ကြထားပြီးတော့မှတ်ရပဲနဲ့အမှတ်ကပဲသူ့ဟာသူမှတ်သွားတယ်လို့ဖြစ်တတ်ပါတယ်
When this state of balance is very strong in the yogi's practice, then it is not necessary for the yogi to be effortful in trying to be mindful of objects that are arising. It will seem as though the mindfulness is taking care of everything.
ငယ်ငယ်ကဘုန်းကြီးများယုံတန်းစကားပုံမြင်လေးတစ်ခုကြားဥပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီပုံမြင်လေးကငယ်ငယ်တုန်းကလည်းမယုံပါဘူးဒါမှမဟုတ်တရားထုတ်တဲ့အခါကျတော့ပုံမြင်မဟုတ်မှလည်းသိတော့လည်းသိနေတာပဲဒါပေမဲ့လို့အဲ့ဒီပုံမြင်လေးနဲ့ခက်ဆင်ဆင်ဖြစ်နေတယ်ဘုန်းကြီးကြားဘူးတဲ့ပုံမြင်ကတော့ဒီပစ္စည်းဝတ္ထုထမ်းတဲ့အခါမှာထမ်းဖို့ဆိုတာရှိပါတယ်တဘိုးဟိုဘက်ဒီဘက်ဆိုင်းဆိုတာနှစ်ဖက်ရှိတယ်ပစ္စည်းတွေထည့်ရအောင်ဟိုရေတွေပါဒီထမ်းတဲ့အခါမှာဟိုတဘိုးနဲ့ပေါ့လေဟိုဒီဘက်ဟိုဘက်ဒီဘက်ပုံနှစ်ပုံရှိပါတယ်လေကောင်ကတဘိုးလေကောင်ကနေပြီးတော့လူကဝင်ထားရတာတဘိုးဘယ်လောက်များကောင်းတယ်လဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပထမတော့လူကတဘိုးအချိန်ရအောင်၄-၅-10လှမ်းလောက်ပေါ့လေဒီမှာထမ်းပေးရတယ်တဲ့နောက်တဘိုးကအချိန်ရပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လူကအထူးမထားရပဲနဲ့လူကတဘိုးကိုအသားလေးခိုပြီးတော့လိုက်သွားတယ်တဲ့အဲ့လိုသဘောမျိုးဖြစ်တတ်တယ်တဲ့ဒီမှာဘုရားကတော့ယုံတမ်းပါပဲဒါပြီးတရားနေတဲ့ကြတဲ့အခါကျတော့ယောဂီကတော့စောစောပိုင်းကတော့အားစိုက်ပြီးတော့မှတ်နေရတာပဲနောက်တော့ယောဂီကမှတ်ရတဲ့တရားကိုအသားလေးခိုပြီးတော့လိုက်သွားတယ်လို့ဖြစ်သွားတယ်မှာဒီလိုက်ဒီဘုံမှာ
သိပါလေအင်္ဂလိပ်လိုဘယ်လိုခေါ်လဲသဘောငါကြီးဒီလားအင်္ဂလိပ်လိုဘယ်လိုခေါ်လဲသဘော balance balancing Sayadaw was a little kid. He heard of people telling him of a strange phenomena that happens when one is carrying what is called a balancing pole. You have a sort of a bamboo pole over your shoulder, and there's a basket in the front and a basket in the back. And I don't know what you call it. Is it a balancing pole? Okay. It seems that when you first start to carry that balancing pole, you have to exert a lot of effort. But all you need to do is put the load on your shoulders and carry that balancing pole with whatever stuff you have in the two baskets and walk for about 10 or 15 steps, getting the feel of the pole, so to speak. And it may be rather burdensome for the first few 10 or 15 steps. But it seems that after that, things become very easy. because the thing is, rocking up and down, and you just move along with it in a very relaxed way. You hardly feel the load at all. Sayadaw couldn't believe this at first when he heard about it, but later on when he meditated, then he realized that it can be very possible.
အဲ့ဒီဥပက္ခတံမောစီဖြစ်ခြင်းအကြောင်းကတော့မြတ်စွာဘုရားလူတော်ကြားကတော့လွယ်ပါပဲဒီအင်အားကြီးညီမျှစေတဲ့ဥပက္ခတံမောစီကိုဖြစ်ပွားစေရေးမှာအမြဲမပြတ်နှလုံးသွင်းရှုမှတ်နေမယ်ဆိုတဲ့စိတ်ထားပါလေရှုမှတ်နေလို့ထိုက်တန်သမျှအခြေခံကစပြီးတော့ညီမျှမှုလေးတွေဖြစ်လာတယ်ပထမဆုံးဖြစ်တဲ့အင်အားကြီးညီမျှစေတဲ့ဥပက္ခဟာနောက်ဖြစ်ပေါ်လာမယ့်ဥပက္ခရဲ့အကြောင်းလေးတွေပါပဲလွယ်ပါပဲသူကအဲ့ဒါလို့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်နောက်ဆုံးဥရိယဗျာညာမိုင်းလောက်ရောက်လာတဲ့အခါမှာဥပက္ခတံမောစဉ်အဲ့လိုဖြစ်လာတတ်ပါတယ်
According to the Buddha, there is only one way, one cause for bringing about this factor of enlightenment. If one is always attentive to this desire, or if one is motivated always by wise attention to be continually mindful from moment to moment without a break, so that equanimity can be developed, then one's aim can be realized. For the preceding momentum of equanimity will be the cause for the succeeding momentum of equanimity to be carried over. So once this equanimity is started, is activated, then it can bring one to deep levels of practice beyond the insight into the arising and passing away of phenomena.
So လို့တော့တရားဝင်တဲ့အချိန်ကစပြီးတော့အမြဲပြတ်ရှုမှတ်နေတဲ့ယောဂီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဟာမှတ်ချက်တိုင်းမှာတော့အင်အားကြီးညီမျှတာမဖြစ်နိုင်ပါဘူးတစ်ခါမှာအင်အားကြီးညီမျှတဲ့သဘောလေးတွေဖြစ်တတ်တယ်မကြာခဏလည်းဖြစ်တတ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါလို့အခြေခံအစပြီးတော့ဖြစ်အစဉ်စဉ်ဖြစ်သွားတဲ့ဟာလေးတွေဟာနောက်ဥပက္ခတံမောစဉ်ဖြစ်ခြင်းအကြောင်းလို့ဒီလိုဆိုလိုပါတယ်
What is meant is that for the beginning yogi, this state of equilibrium or equanimity it does not easily arise in his consciousness. Although the yogi may be pretty diligent in trying to be mindful from moment to moment, it is hardly possible for equanimity to be present in each moment of mindfulness. However, it may arise from time to time. When things are well balanced, then there may be a few moments of equanimity present, and then off it goes again, and it will come again later. And so, step by step, very slowly, this equanimity is strengthened and prolonged as it arises in one's consciousness. Eventually, when this prolongation and frequency of equanimity is developed, then it will bring the yogi to that level of insight where equanimity becomes strong enough to qualify as a factor of enlightenment. The commentators, however, point out 5 ways of arousing equanimity. The first and foremost is having an equanimous attitude toward all living beings. Beings here, of course, refer to your loved ones, those whom you care for and who care for you, as well as to all animals, the pariya, dogs, cats, and so forth. One can have a lot of attachment to people whom we love, whom we care for, and also to animals, to pets. This can bring about a lot of desire in the mind. Sometimes one can be so crazy about pets or about loved ones that it becomes pretty uncontrollable. This is something which will not at all contribute to the development of equanimity, which is a state of balance. So in order to prepare the ground for equanimity to arise, one should try to cultivate an attitude of not being attached, of non-attachment, of just having a feeling of equanimity with respect to people whom we love, as well as to pets and other animals. Of course, as worldly people, they have a lot of attachments to people who to loved ones and people who are cared for. It may be necessary to have this such feelings in relationships, but in excess, these feelings can turn out to be destructive to oneself as well as to others.
သူအပြင်တရားနေတဲ့ရောက်လာပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒါလိုယူရမှုတွေကတတ်နိုင်ဆုံးကင်းရပါတယ်ကင်းလေလေဟောဒီဥပေက္ခတံဝစဉ်ဖြစ်လေလေပါပဲအဲ့ဒီကင်းအောင်ဆင်ញင်တဲ့နည်းကနှစ်နည်းရှိပါတယ်မိမိကလည်းပဲရှေ့ကုသိုလ်ကံကြောင့်ဖြစ်ပေါ်လာရတာပဲသူလည်းပဲကုသိုလ်ကံကြောင့်ဖြစ်ပေါ်လာရတာပဲကိုကုသိုလ်ကိုကံတဲ့ကိုဖြစ်လာတာယူရနေလို့ကဘာထူးမှာတော့ဆိုတာပေါ့လေကမ္မတက္ကတာတမ္မာဒိဋ္ဌိရှိပြီးတော့ဆင်ញင်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်စိတ်ကလေးဟာညီမျှသွားတတ်ပါတယ်ပဲမလိုက်တဲ့သဘောလေးတွေဖြစ်တတ်ပါတယ်
Over attachment can bring about a lot of undue concern over the welfare of another person. When one is in a retreat, such worries or concerns should best be put aside, for they can be the cause of much agitation in the mind and obstruction to the practice. There is a way of reflection that one can adopt in order to cultivate this attitude of equanimity. You can, for example, look at people as the heirs of their own karma. People have created karma of their own accord, and there is karma which is good and karma which is unwholesome, and whoever commits any good or unwholesome karma will have to reap its reward or suffer its consequences, its evil consequences. So there is really nothing that one can do about the plight of another on the ultimate level. So let karma take its own course. So if one is able to reflect in this way, it is very helpful in reducing your over-attachment and in easing any undue concern over others.
နောက်တနည်းကမျက်မှောက်တွေ့ပရမတ္ထတရားအဖြစ်တတ္တဝါဆိုတာတော့မှရှိတာမဟုတ်ဘူးရှိတာကတော့ယုံနာပဲကြောင်းကျိုးဆက်တွေပဲဒီတော့ဒီလိုအခြေအနေရှိနေတဲ့သင်ကဘုဒ္ဓကိုများသွားပြီးတော့ယူရနေအောင်မှာတော့လို့ဒီလိုပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တ attva မရှိတဲ့အနေနဲ့ပေါ့လေဆင်ញင်ပြီးတော့လည်းပဲဝိကတံဘောဇဉ်နေပွားယူရပါတယ်
Another way that one can reflect on this situation is in terms of ultimate reality. You can perhaps tell yourself that ultimately speaking, there is only mind and matter, only mental phenomena and physical phenomena. Where is that person whom you are so crazy about? Who is it that you are so madly in love with? Nama and Rupa. Just mental and physical phenomena. There's nothing in it. It's arising and passing away from moment to moment. Which moment are you in love with? Well, you may be able to derive some sense into your heart.
Like the other the ball, Mashibu Sara, Sanyin at the Washi the last, or Dirulam Hofu. And Urora Kore, like the other the Walla Mashibu. We Rora Kore, Sanyin at the Walla Mashibu. Edelo, like the Omu Sanyim who Naku, Pere and the Appian. Alela the Bomiuma, Ubekatam in pitching a Jaumabe. Mono Pitara, the pitching Lupchibi, Ganeba saying the restaurant, Elamum Hofu.
One may ask if such sort of reflections could bring about a real abandoning of the other person. Is it something that will develop into into an unfeeling sort of indifference? Well, I don't care two hoots, Anything can happen to him, I don't care, I'm just going to do my own thing. Well, it doesn't really come from that sort of space. It's not an insensitive sort of indifference where you just give up hope completely and adopt a very sort of apathetic attitude. Equanimity occurs only when there is no preference. One is not trying to push aside something that one does not like, nor does one try to indulge in something that one has a liking for. There is no preference at all. Come what may, everything is what it is. Only then can the conditions be ripe for developing equanimity.
Puggudadwane Sabiro, Sanjine the Boga Paṇḍitā Mosi Chite Kamave Toroli Webido King Ebavi. Puggudadwane Sabiro, Sanjine the Boga Paṇḍitā Mosi Chite Kamave Toroli Webido.
Paṇḍitā. In fact, this attachment to beings or dislike for beings are abandoned when the factor of enlightenment, of calmness or tranquility is present.
Ubekhaye Sanyebe Jauha Turu Chaja Yaga Babe, Leliore Yaga.
The direct opposite of equanimity is lust or desire.
Tira Ubekha Yaga Ture Bogo Yaga Miare Bogo ye Sinje Tanshini Jaume Jangam Yama Adilian Mijatabare.
Therefore, the texts tell us that upekkha or equanimity is the cause for the cleansing or for the purification of one who has a deep tendency, who has deep lustful and lustful tendencies.
Piranarakuga Sinkhara Majatata Sinkhara Sura Ayautu Babe Yutu Babe Miado Abseno Erariboma Animia Sitashia made.
The next factor that will conduce to the development of equanimity is to adopt an attitude of balance toward things other than beings.
Adama leve Nina Nishibare Tingara Yaudu Reboma Animia Tare Niboli Uma Go Awasa Adons of Bisi Boma Boli. The nature and Ariha, you Piesita de the Bobe, Suraboli. Sumpilia met the Bobe, Panshin Sura Mashibu, Suraboli. Edilu Panshin, Mary and Nigu, Leve, Sinza Vido, those of Bisi Boma, Bempiares Italy, Mumipia made.
We can reflect on the things that we use, for example, your clothing. We could reflect on how clothing are perishable things. One day they will be torn to shreds, they will decay and perish. They are not permanent, and so forth. And also there is no owner in the ultimate sense. Who is the owner of all these things? Everything is non-self. There is no one around. So if one is able to look at one's property in this way, then it can help to cut down a lot of attachment to things.
DBC she let me come out, the Kana don't leave a look. Did you leave Tawagalika, Kaitan do Kande and Nimu level senior video? Pemia sickly lemumi pay made.
We can also look upon these things as transient things. We can make use of them as on a temporary basis. Well, I'm going to make use of this only for a short time. After all, they're not going to last anyway. And if you have that sort of attitude, then also you can cut down attachment.
At the Sanjay de Bogori, Wijita Nene Bogori ha San La Luci, busy San La Luci, where don't like no you do Luci Tilo Ediboma E Dwalu, Mondalu, Pilia, have you Ubekalum so.
People who get caught up in fads may be very interested in buying up a certain thing which is very novel, very new in the market, and having bought it, and before long there's a new product in the market which is more sophisticated, and throwing away the old one and getting the new one doesn't mean that that person has the feeling of equanimity with regards to the first one.
Nadakuga Sata Sinkhara Kilayana Bugla Briwajanata Tatawane Yauturigo Yuya Date Boko A Boko Shauma.
The next factor is avoiding the company of people who have a tendency to be crazy about people and things.
Good Adamiri, good Dabiri, Era is a day you are. Tumia Kaima, mà chạy này cái là đi yêu ya mù lo na thì yêu bisi số mấy đẹp bồ thì cô bisi tụi mình tông xoay ra mà chạy này mù ai yêu ya đấy cô đâu mà tôi yên này mới thà ra era tát đồ bồ cô tát đồ này bisi bồ mà yêu ya đủ lúc khó vậy.
Such people are those who have a great attachment to the people whom they love or care for, as well as to their own possessions and property. In other words, there is a very deep sense of possessiveness, clinging to what they think belong to them, people and things. Some people are so possessive that they really find it difficult to see other people enjoying or using their property.
Tattva li yu ya de mathi ya baတရားအားထုတ်လို့တရားအခြေအနေလေးကလည်းတော်တော်ကောင်းနေပြီဒါပေမဲ့လို့ထူးထူးခြားခြားမဖြစ်သေးဘူးဖြစ်သေးတော့အကြောင်းစုံတွေပေါ့လေဘယ်နေရာများညှိတွဲနေတာရှိတယ်ဆိုတာမင်းများကြည့်တဲ့အခါအကုန်လုံးရှင်းနေတယ်ဘာမှအညှိတွဲမရှိဘူးဆိုတာရှင်းနေတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့လို့ဆရာတော်ကြီးကျောင်းမှာကြောင်လေးတွေခွေးလေးတွေမွေးထားတာများရှိသလားလို့မေးကြည့်ရှိတယ်တဲ့ခွေးလေးတွေကြောင်လေးတွေပေါ့လေသူချစ်တော်နေနဲ့မွေးထားတာတခါတခါအဲ့ဒီခွေးလေးကြောင်လေးတွေစီရောက်နေတယ်တဲ့ငါကောင်လေးတွေစားမစားရလားဘာလားပေါ့လေမှာအဲ့ဒါနဲ့အဲ့ဒီဟာနဲ့ပဲတရားနေရမကြဘူးအဲ့ဒါလေးတွေဖြတ်လိုက်ပါဗျာလို့ဒီလိုပြောတဲ့အခါကျမှလွတ်လပ်လာဖြစ်သွားတာမှာ
There is a case of an elder who had a great attachment to pets. Seems that in his monastery he reared a lot of pets, dogs and cats and so forth. So this elder one day came to the yekta, to the meditation center, to participate in a retreat. And he was meditating pretty well. His practice was deepening, but at one stage he seems to get stuck and not make any progress. Sayadaw asked him, Sayadaw investigated to find out if he had any attachment to anything at all, or if there was any other, if there was something wrong with the environment or other circumstances. Well, he questioned him and found that everything seemed to be very clean. This elder was practicing under good environmental conditions, under favorable circumstances. And finally, Sayadaw struck an idea and asked him if he had any pets in his monastery. And suddenly he brightened up and said, "Oh yeah, sure. I have so many dogs and cats in my monastery, and ever since I left that place to come and meditate in the center, I've been thinking about what's happened to them, whether they're having enough food to eat and so forth." And Sayadaw asked him to please, forget about those animals for the time being and concentrate on the meditation. So he managed to take away that very strong attachment, and the elder, it seems, made pretty good progress after that.
ခွေးလေးတွေကြောင်လေးတွေချစ်တော်နေနဲ့မွေးတတ်တဲ့အမေရိကလူမျိုးတွေပေါ့လေဒီမှာလာပြီးတော့တရားထိုင်တဲ့အခါအချစ်တော်လေးတွေပြစ်ထားကြရတော့အဲ့ဒီစီစိတ်ပြန်ရောက်နေဖို့ကတော့တေချာတယ်နဲ့တူတယ်ဒီမှာဒါတော့တရားဒီဘက်ကတန်ဖိုးစဉ်ပွားခြင်းအဲ့ဒါလေးတွေဖြတ်ထားမှဖြစ်မှာဖြတ်ထားဆိုတာလည်းအစင်းတော့မဟုတ်ပါဘူးတောင်းတော့ဖြတ်ထားပေါ့
Well, since people in America like to rear pets. Sayadaw is quite certain that there are some of you here who have left your pets at home and are constantly thinking about them. If indeed there are any of you here, then you should try to forget about your pets for the time being, as long as you're in this retreat, if you are really interested in developing this factor of enlightenment.
ခွေးတဲ့အရေးကြီးတဲ့လူတော်မှစွန့်ခဲ့နိုင်လို့ရှိရင်ခွေးလေးကြတော့ဘာမှမစွန့်နိုင်စရာတော့မရှိပါဘူး
If you can leave behind loved ones, people, to come to meditate here, there is no reason why you cannot leave behind your pets.
ပြီးတော့နောက်တစ်ခုကသတ္တသင်္ခါရကေလမจ္จတပုဂ္ဂလဇီဝနတာတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တ attva နဲ့ရုပ်ထုတွေပေါ်မှာယူရမှုမရှိဘဲနဲ့အလယ်အလတ်ပဲ့မျှတဲ့စိတ်ထားရှိတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ကိုယူရပြီးတော့မှီဝဲပါတဲ့
The fourth factor is keeping the company of those who do not have great attachments to beings or possessions, to things.
အဲ့ဒါလိုရွေးရမှာခုနကဆရာတော်ကြီးပုဂ္ဂိုလ်လိုသွားရွေးမိလို့ရှိရင်လည်းပဲအခက်ပဲ
In the in the choosing of such a person, if you happen to pick the elder, which the Sayadaw mentioned just now, that also can be a little bit of a problem.
ဒီတော့နောက်ဆုံးကတော့ခုနဒီအတိတ်ပဲကတော့ရှင်းပါပြီခုနပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တ attva တွေယူရတတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ရဲ့ဆန့်ကျင်ဘက်ပါပဲဒီမှာဒါတော့အတိတ်ပဲဖြည့်ရှင်းပြဖို့မလိုသလောက်ပါပဲ
This factor probably needs no further explanation, since it is just the converse of the previous factor.
နောက်ဆုံးကတော့တတ္တိမုဒ္ဒတာတဲ့တွားရထိုင်နေအောင်အရိယဘု၄မျိုးလုံးမှာအဲ့ဒီဥပက္ခတန်ဖိုးစဉ်ဖြစ်ပွားစေဖို့ရာအမြဲတမ်းစိတ်ကိုင်းညွတ်ထားတာပေါ့လေဒီဘက်ကြအောင်ဒီဘက်ကိုင်းညွတ်ထားမှာပဲကိုင်းညွတ်တဲ့ဘက်ကြမှာပဲကိုင်းညွတ်တဲ့စိတ်မရှိဘဲနဲ့ဟိုဘက်ခန္ဓာဆရာတော်ကြီးချစ်တော်လေးတွေပြန်ပြီးတော့မျောသလိုလုပ်နေလို့ရှိရင်တော့ဥပက္ခတန်ဖိုးစဉ်အပြည့်ဝရမှာမဟုတ်ဘူး
The final causative factor for developing equanimity as a factor of enlightenment is to always cultivate the mind that inclines toward the arousing of this factor of enlightenment in whatever that you are doing, when you're sitting or walking or standing or doing other activities. When your mind is inclined in this way toward the arousing of equanimity, then you will find that it will not wander off to thoughts of your pets or loved ones, for example, not like the elder who kept on thinking about his dogs and cats in the monastery.
အဝဇ္ဇခုနှစ်ပါးတော့ဟောလို့ပြီးသွားပါပြီလူဘုဇင်တရားတွေပွားခြင်းဖြင့်ကိုယ်ကျမ်းမာရေးရပုံပြီးတော့ဒီထဲမှာစံတရားအစဉ်စဉ်နေပေါ့လေပြောဖို့ရအဲ့ဒါလေးတွေကျမ်းနေပါသေးတယ်အဲ့ဒါတော့ညာပိုင်းကျမှာပဲဆက်လက်ပြီးတော့ဟောတော့မှာပဲ
အဲ့ဒါအခုဘုဇင်တရားတွေကြားနာတဲ့ဓမ္မဒေသနာ၏ဆွမ်းအနုဘောကြောင့်ယောဂီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်များတတိတံဘောဇင်ကအစပြီးတော့နောက်ဆုံးပဲ့မြတဲ့ဥပက္ခတံဘောဇင်ပွားပြီးတော့လောကကြီးထဲမှာအိန္ဒိယရနဲ့ပေါ့လေပဲ့မြဆိုတာနေနိုင်တဲ့အရေးချင်းလေးတွေပြည့်ဝတဲ့ဒီကြိုးစားအထောက်နိုင်ကြပါစေလို့ဆုတောင်းရင်းနဲ့ဒီနေ့တရားဝတ်သင်လိုက်ပါတယ်
So much for the factors of enlightenment. Where Sayadaw has finished discussing each of the 7 factors, and what remains to be dealt with are 1, the phenomena of miraculous cures, so to speak, of how diseases can be cured through the development of these 7 factors of enlightenment, as well as the jhanic factors that are involved when these factors of enlightenment are being cultivated. These will be talked about tonight, and Sayadaw hopes that all of you will be able to make full use of the knowledge you gain through this series of discourses on the 7 factors of enlightenment, and cultivate each of them starting from mindfulness until equanimity, so that you may be able to return to the world as a very balanced and equanimous person.